Welcome to the Sales to CEO podcast. This is your host, Louie Herron. It is my personal mission to coach, motivate, and inspire you to go from salesperson to dealer principal or any position you desire. Stop making excuses and start making the adjustments to the future you want and deserve. And today we're talking to one of our primetime players, Hunter Edmondson. Okay, guys, Louie Herron, Sales to CEO. Look, I'm excited. We've got a primetime guest today, Hunter Edmondson. And what's unique about Hunter is Hunter's not in the car sales business, but he's in the selling business. He has access to Sales to CEO. He understands some of the content and concepts of that product and how it relates to selling in general. So I'm excited to kind of bring him here. He's actually in the roofing industry, and we'll let him discuss kind of his experience. But let me tell you what I love about this guy that sticks out and why this is a powerful show for you to listen to. Hunter's 22 years of age, right? And so there's not many 22-year-olds that are making six figures. This guy is. And when I think of this guy, I think of visionary, I think of big thinker, but probably most importantly, I think of connection. This guy is a person that values connection, like authentic, raw connection. And I think when we're talking about selling anything, anybody, and it first starts with selling ourselves, right? We've got to be convinced ourselves on a daily basis of what we want out of life and what we're trying to attain out of life. I think this guy will bring a ton of value. So Hunter, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Louie. Thanks for having me.
Was that a pretty good
intro?
Was
that was great.
Not bad, right?
Yeah, that was great.
So listen, you're in the I've got some questions for you, and then you and I, there's a book that you recommended that I really want everyone that's listening to get the book, but I want you to kind of give us a little rundown about that. But tell me a little bit about your upbringing and why you think the way you think, in terms of, like, you're in the sales business now, right? But tell me some things, just kind of your upbringing that kind of makes who you are and creates.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about it.
So I grew up in a split household family where, my parents were divorced, my mom and my dad. I was constantly split in between my life, and I was constantly having to sell myself to my family and to my friends and to everybody, to convince one side or the other who was right and who was wrong. So initially I began to learn how to put all the different pieces together of stories that people would tell me, whether it was from my mom or from my dad. I would have to break those down and make my own best decision, my own best judgment, and decide for myself, who did I want to go to for Thanksgiving? Who did I want to go to for Christmas? I had to make all of these decisions for myself.
Right. Well, and the stories of conflict within those, like, which narrative is true, right?
Yes, correct. So I was always questioning, and that's the big key to that, is I was taught to question everything. And that allowed me to be open-minded and to learn to build connections more deeply than I think than a lot of people do, because I had to pay attention to the details.
Right. Let me veer for a second, because I got another couple of good questions that I think the listeners would enjoy your comments to. But real quick, you're in the roofing business, so you're in sales. You're making six figures. You're doing well for yourself. You're a young guy. Who do you work for, and kind of what is your sales, or what is your sales business? What do you do in the roofing business?
So I am an account manager for Corey Construction. We are a residential production roofing company here in Atlanta, based out of Texas. And I basically set up new accounts for our business, and I build connections and take people out to do things and maintain business relationships.
So are you face to face with the clients on the normal basis?
Yes.
Okay.
I have to schedule appointments every week. That's the only way you get new business is to schedule appointments, and make new things happen. So
I would imagine in the sales process, the show's automotive driven, right? So we have a prospect, they come in, they look at a car, we do a meet and greet, we fact find, we gather all the thoughts, everything that we need about the deal, and then obviously we try to transition, get some manager involvement, and we go through this whole process, right? Is roofing? I would imagine selling is selling. Do you still have that same? You got your period where you kind of meet a customer and kind of gather their needs, and then they kind of ask you a bunch of questions. Is that pretty much the same philosophy?
Yeah, it's the same philosophy. I think sales in general is baseline the same. Yeah, the same stuff. Exactly.
Right. Let me ask you this question, Hunter. We're going to keep it going because I got a couple of questions that I think are awesome that you'll give some great feedback on. Let's talk about a moment of defining that moved you in a positive direction. I want you to think for a second. Out of all the in all of your 22 years. 22 years of life, baby. Tell me a moment where you think where it was a hinge pin moment where you were like, okay, you had to pivot. Something happened. It could be most recently. It could be back in the day. And not only did it move you, it propelled you in a positive direction. And like, what positive moves did you make in getting your mindset right? Because we talk about a lot on this podcast, mindsets and skill sets, right? We want your mind's got to be right. Your skills have got to be honed in. You've got to master your craft and your mind's got to be right. Those two components aren't working in the selling business. You're done. You're toast, right? So keeping your mind right is crucial. Tell me a time where you had a defining moment and you propelled yourself and did go in a positive direction.
So I think when I first went to college, I got involved in the normal college stuff. You go do school and then you go hang out with your buddies and maybe you go have a couple of drinks that you might not have should have had. You're going out and spending a bunch of time.
Having fun.
Yeah, you're having a good time. And I realized that that wasn't where I needed to be and where I was going to excel the greatest if I spent my time doing things that hindered my mind and hindered my soul and my spirit,
right,
that I wouldn't be able to propel myself as far as I wanted to go. So I made the decision to get out of school and to go to work because I felt that was going to be the best decision for me to keep me on a direct straight line path.
Well, and I'll tell you, look, I mean, I was a college dropout. I mean, there's a lot of successful people. I mean, you speak highly of your father and your mother. They didn't finish college, right? So, I mean, and very successful, do very well for themselves. So I don't think, I'm probably the wrong guy, of prerequisite, of schooling being a prerequisite of success. I don't have a problem with it, right? My children will go, but at the same time, I support and understand exactly where you're coming from. At some point, if you're not in a certain niche, you're not going to be an attorney, a lawyer, an engineer. Man, it's time to get it in gear.
That's right.
And figure out what the game plan is, right? So I'm thinking to myself, because when I talk to you guys don't know this, but I talk to Hunter often, and when I talk to him, there's always a sense of certainty from you of future success. Like when we talk, there's always a sense of a certainty. Like you don't know it, you can't see it, you have no idea what it's going to be. Where does that come from, or why do you have that? Because you have this way about you that there's a confidence, not cockiness, not arrogance, but a very humble certainty. Why do you have that, and why do you feel like your future's bright?
Louie, to be honest with you, I think it really just comes down to faith in myself, having confidence in myself to know that no matter what happens in this world, that I will be able to bounce back because I'm capable and I'm able, right, and I am willing. And if you can push through all those three things, you will always be able to figure out. Everything is figure outable. Right.
Capable, able, and willing. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Those that are listening, write that down. If you're not driving, don't crash. But capable, able, and willing. I think willingness is a huge piece. When you hit adversity and something comes at you that's painful, emotionally painful, something that knocks you down, do you find yourself having a strong sense of resilience, or do you get in the muck and the mire for a long period of time? How do you handle those things?
I think I bounce back pretty quickly. We all go through emotional turmoil, and handling that as quickly as possible is effective to continue on with your life and continue on with your mission and whatever your goal is in that moment. So I think that I handle adversities pretty well.
Right. So again, we got this book that you and I have talked about. It's Power versus Force. Is that correct?
Power versus Force.
Do you know who the author
by
is?
David R. Hawkins.
Oh, he knows the author. Okay. So mental note, guys, but write that down. Power versus Force. Now, let's go through this just a little bit because I want to hear your feedback as you've read this book. Is there a couple things that stick out? Like if you say, look, Louie, I think there's three things that stick out in this book. There's two things here's the one major thing. How would you, if you're going to explain to me the book and why I would want to buy the book and how it impacted your thinking, right? Because we're talking about mindsets again. Tell us a little bit about this book.
So Power versus Force is truthfully a breakdown analysis of the consciousness level that humanity has, or anything has, the truth and the falsehood of the world. So we have truth and then we have falsehood. Things that are true will calibrate at a certain level in the universe, and so will falsehood. So the basis of this book is to describe how we can find the truth in the things that we are involved with, or find the falsehood. And there's a bunch of different techniques that he breaks down and analyzes throughout that are clinical and researched practices,
right,
to verify these so-called scores.
Are you talking are you talking like literally vibration, right? Like a frequency, right? We're all connected in some way.
Yes, exactly. Everything in the universe is connected to some point, and that point can be calibrated at a certain frequency. So in the book, he puts it into terms that are understandable for normal people,
the layman.
Right? Yes, right.
Somebody who didn't finish college,
for
right?
us, yes, for us humans. And this guy, he is a phenomenon of just very intellectual, very spiritual, very connected, and he puts it into a way that understands the different levels that we can reach as a human. And like Louie, like you were saying, what you take to the table and how you handle adversities and how you set your goals and put what you put into the world.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, this and again, most of you know, when you listen, we only keep these podcasts to 15 minutes. And so we've got a few more minutes left. I'd love to continue talking about the book. But I do encourage you guys, Power versus Force. Who's the author?
David R. Hawkins.
David R. Hawkins. Just as closing, I just want to kind of go through the power of a paradigm. When we were talking earlier with some of the questions that I asked you, we're talking about people's behaviors, right? And people's what like when you think about the thing that fascinates me about human beings is like, how many times do people know how to do better? They want to do better, but they say to themselves, why don't I do better? Like, why do I keep doing the things that I do, right? Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the scripture where Paul talks about, why do I do the things I hate? I don't want to do those things. I don't know exactly the exact verse, but those that listen may understand. Why do I do the things that I know I'm not supposed to do, but I continue to do those things, right? And so I think as human beings, why do we continue to do that? And I think it makes me think of like our paradigm, right? Like our paradigm on how we see the world, like how we adjust, again, a paradigm is like a set of beliefs or a set of habits that are programmed in you from your subconscious mind, and they control all your behavior, right? That's the hardware. So without even thinking, without even conscious thought, you are reacting from your paradigm, right? And your paradigm's your DNA, yes. Your paradigm's your environment, right? So
that's your narrative, that's your story, right. That's what you've created about yourself for your whole life.
Exactly.
So if you go against what you think and what you're naturally responsive to, right. You feel like you're lying to yourself.
Right.
So we continue to do the things that we're comfortable with and that right. we know, and we don't go outside of our comfort zone because we feel as if that's not our true self.
Right. And so what's crazy about it is if a paradigm is kind of a set of beliefs and habits that is pre-programmed from your subconscious, from your upbringing, from your DNA, from your environment, right? Until you change the program, the behaviors will never change.
That's correct.
Right? So I guess it always makes me think, okay, so what can we do to change some of the programming, right, at a deeper level, not the conscious, but a deeper level. And if I had to say, like, there's 3 things to become more joyful, more abundant, have more happiness. What if you had, and I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't ask you this question beforehand, if you had 3 habits or 3 key things that you think are important to kind of reprogram yourself, kind of get your mind at a deeper level, going in a different direction so we can change the behaviors, right? If we know better, we should do better, but we don't do better unless we change the programming. What 3 things would you give our listeners to kind of work on as far as of habits to get more abundance, more joy, more happiness, etc.?
I think the first thing would be listening more and understanding others and your situation. I think listening and understanding is so vital to be able to even start your process of growing or learning or comprehending why somebody else thinks the way that they do. We have all these emotional influxes from others, and we react to those emotions from others. If we do not understand and we can't listen to what they're saying, we can allow those things to make us feel a certain type of way. It might not make us feel happy.
Right.
It might not make us feel joyful.
Right.
The second thing would probably be learning how to love yourself no matter what, even when you make mistakes, because we're all humans and we're going to make mistakes. We're going to live and we're going to learn. Mm-hmm. And I think that understanding, back to the first thing, understanding that you are going to make mistakes, and that you can still continue on with life, knowing that, oh, I failed. Well, let's get up and go to the next thing.
Right.
Like, this isn't going to hinder me. This isn't going to stop me from pursuing my goals.
Yeah, and I don't want to derail you, but really, what he just said there, I think is probably could be number one. And it sounds so silly, right? We see Saturday Night Live. I love myself. I love myself. I like myself. We make fun of, but they're really, if you think about the crux of behavior, things that we do are symptomatic of something deeper going on that more times than not is a huge gaping hole of self-love, right? Something we never received that we're fighting for, that we want. And so when we don't get it, we behave in such a way that may be reckless, that may be irresponsible, that may be whatever. And people look at you and like, why do you do it? You're like, I don't freaking know why I do that. I have no idea. But it's a driving force. So I think that the second one is huge, and it sounds crazy, but it's one that I think we all should pay attention to. So we listen, we have a high level of self-love, and do you have a third? And if you don't have a third, you don't have
I would say, and I know it's kind of cliche now in today's world, but being authentic with yourself, and that comes to just being honest with others, and most importantly with yourself. Don't try to convince yourself. And again, if you're listening and you're understanding and you're loving yourself, it's way easier to be authentic.
Man, we could venture. I was reading a book. I'm in the middle of a book, Black Heart, Black Face, a great book as well. And it was talking about lying, and it was talking about, like you're talking about authenticity. And one of the stories was talking about how many times people lie, and the conditioning of being 100% truthful in every given moment. And like, so there was one example that he was using in the book that was referencing an anchor was being grilled by somebody on the spot, and he was dishonest because he didn't want to. It was telling the story of how we're conditioned in a public environment to not give people information that's not their business. But he's lying, right? So if you talk about full authenticity and you put yourself out there, and wait a minute, this is my family's business in a public forum. It's nobody's business, but you're lying. And so we qualify and quantify. Well, that lies, I understand. You need, hey, honey, do I look good?
Because we lie to fit that narrative that we were talking about earlier, with that story that we've created. If it doesn't, if our environment doesn't fit that story that we've created our whole life, we lie because we have to continue the story on. If not, we just create a million different stories.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? So the last thing I want to talk about was the power of understanding, and you guys are still with us, man. I hope you still hang with this last part here of just really attaining targets and goals, right? We're talking about, you've got goals and targets you want to achieve. I've got them. Everyone listening has got them. And really the power, I think, of understanding where these targets, how we really get it. Because I don't know if anyone realizes this, but really intellectually your target has to be had. That's the first place. And then emotionally and then physically it manifests, right? So if you think about it, intellectually, you're going to have to write this target down, in my opinion, whatever it's worth. Everyone needs to write down, ink it, don't think it. Don't think in your mind, write it on paper, put a date to it, put a time frame, own that target, whatever it is, write it down. Then emotionally, you attain the target. So what do I mean by emotionally? Then we meditate on it. We visualize on it, right? We have affirmations. We see it in our mind's eye. I truly believe that when you intellectually write it down, you emotionally, with passion, accept it and see it in your mind as it's already attained, then the manifestation of that will find itself. That law of attraction, the circumstantial situation that you meet and people that give you this, that you wouldn't even know how you got it, right? So it's almost like, a seed has a certain germination period, right? It's not overnight. We don't know. And I think really the ideas that we have is more of a spiritual seed, right? And so if you look at like biblical law, we believe in the germination of what God says he's going to do, but with a spiritual law, there is no time frame. We don't have, it's not like pregnancy, right? We know when a seed is planted in a woman, we know that, we have 280 days and we will have a baby, right? We know that germination, process. But when you're talking about an idea, an imagination, a thought, something that you want, it's more in the spiritual realm. My wife is reading this book. Golly, I can't think of the title of the book, but it's talking about intellectually. It's almost on the same line, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually of laws of the universe. And it's just so apparent that when we're trying to attain something, I think it's important, Hunter, that people need to intellectually write things down. They've got to emotionally connect to it with passion, which means they got to see it in their mind's eye, which takes some visualization. It takes some affirmation, and then it manifests. Are you on the same line of thinking?
Yes,
I know you're nodding.
Yes, I definitely agree, because I think that writing it down and putting it into the world is important for you to even show yourself at the beginning that you're serious.
Right.
You want this to happen. You're taking the time to write your goals down. You're taking the time to be creative and visualize what you're actually trying to accomplish, and then you're manifesting it by your actions and the things that you do every day.
Right. And I think I personally believe when we get our lives in more in line with the law of the universe, more in harmony with the law of the universe, then we're more in harmony, right? Like winter never follows winter. Right? That's not how it works. Like every day we know when it's going to be nighttime. Like that is the law of the universe, right? I mean, it's just going to so I think when we understand that this is how God put everything, and when we get in line with those things and we're in harmony with the universe, and all of a sudden, man, we line up. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing too how when we are lined up, how great your success is as well. When you're in your zone, when you're in your fire, all you salespeople know when you're having a great week, you just because you felt you were in your zone, you woke up and you were fired up, and I'm doing what I need to do today, and you're on your game. So.
Exactly. You know, I tell you, Hunter, we're 20 minutes deep. This is just so you know, those that are listening that listen to my podcast, this is the longest podcast I've ever done. Just so you know. So Hunter, it was a pleasure having you. You did awesome. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, guys. I just again, for me, I'm sitting here talking with a 22-year-old that has some stuff together, and so if a 22-year-old can kind of gather this mindset and work on skill sets, that's what we want to encourage everyone that's listening to do the very same. Hunter, you have any closing remarks or words that close this thing out, or are you good?
Work on getting to the next level.
That's it. Work on getting to the next level. So look, this is Louie Herron, Sales CEO podcast. Do me a favor. You know the fee, guys. Just share it. Also give us a rating below when you're done with the podcast. But look, share it with some other automotive folks. We're bringing you content information that develops your mindset, your skill sets, and hopefully, more importantly than anything else, gets you to the next level. Again, this is Louie Herron. Until next time on the Sales to CEO podcast. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the Sales to CEO podcast. Look, real simple, do me a big favor. Number one, I'm totally grateful you took the time to listen, but share this, like, subscribe. This is how we build our network of growing people in the car industry to the next level. Again, like or share or subscribe right now. Until the next one, great selling, and let's go to the next level.